Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope all of you had your fill and you're now settled after lunch. As we continue our conversation on the future of media, we'll next look at ways the industry should and could change the way it operates. What are the opportunities for the industry in this region, and how can it be more proactive instead of reactive? Our next provocation will be delivered remotely by Premesh Chandran, and our respondents on the couch are Keng, Shuwei, and Shita. This session will be moderated by Prodita. So let's hear it from Prem.
Hello, Jakarta. Nice to not be there, but I hear that CTRL+J is a great conference, and I'm so sad that I can't be with all of you today. I'm in Dubai at the moment, but I'm really glad that I can share this presentation with you. I've been asked to be the agent provocateur on this exciting topic about the future of media and tech of AI in Asia Pacific. So let me share my thoughts, and I hear the cultures out there are going to rebut or discuss some of this. But here's what I think about some of the trends in AI. I think first of all, if we can go back historically and talk about, we want to understand how AI could disrupt the world. Let's look back at how the internet has kind of disrupted what we think. And here I'd like to point out that in often cases of disruption, it's not a single axis, it's actually multiple axes. So with the internet, we actually had three very major changes. First of all, media became globalized, that we could read and publish anywhere in the world. It was no longer about national markets. Secondly, it very quickly became mobile, that we could actually consume information anywhere on our phones and became part and parcel of our lifestyles. And thirdly, because of the global and mobile nature, it also became very participative. Everybody could publish a video on social media, publish a website. So the kind of idea of community and participative culture grew very fast. So I think with the internet, we did not see just a single change. The first order of changes actually build up subsequent orders of changes. And I think that very much AI will be the same. It would not, what we are just seeing is in the initial stages of AI, but the changes are going to generate, the first order changes are going to generate second and third order changes. And what could they be? So firstly, I think that we all know that AI is already reshaping information discovery. We know that AI is not sending much traffic to websites. It tends to answer questions itself. We've seen media reducing page views by 30-40% already. So, and users are now going to AI to find answers rather than say going to a news article, etc. So this is what we've already seen, and they're actually going to get the pace over the next year or so. We also know that AI can generate content very much more quicker and much wider content, and also fake content. We've seen a lot of proliferation of fake news using AI as well. So we're going to see a lot more content out there, much quicker content, but not all of it is going to be accurate. And definitely there is one business where we talk about information verification or watermarking to ensure that some of this information is actually true as opposed to the whole variety of information that we get. That's the second big change I think we're going to be seeing. And thirdly, and this is a nod to Shuwei, who will also discuss this matter, is that AI is quickly going to become a new audience. AI is going to be reading the content that we produce, digesting it, and then regurgitating in different formats. It can either give you a news article, or it may be populating a database, or it will be creating a podcast, all be used to answer your questions. So how AI will then distribute information, both back to humans as well as other AI models, is going to be a main thing. So very quickly we'll see AI itself becoming an audience in its own right. So I think these are the three key changes I see happening over the next 5 years. But I also want to talk about mistakes, right? It's not what we got everything right. And I think that if we look back, we're done in online publishing for 25 years. And actually, one thing I've come to realize is that size matters. We talked about independent media and sustainability, and we pushed a lot of media towards advertising and subscription models. But really, unless you're really big, many small and medium media have not been able to execute on advertising and subscription models in order to gain sustainability. But if you're big and you have size, then you've had the capacity to drive advertising and subscription models and become much more sustainable and independent. So I think that one critical mistake we've made in the past is that, the question of size and at what scale can media be sustainable. And I see the same thing. It's kind of a deja vu today. I see large media corporations, really positioning themselves to pivot around AI transformation, creating new technologies, signing lucrative deals with content licensing sites, really be kind of maximizing the advantages of AI brings. And I see a lot of small and medium outlets being pushed aside, being a little bit more further off. AI models not working for them, licensing deals, giving them very little in return, advertising moving away. They're not being able to invest in AI talent in-house and keep the talent in-house. So again, I see a lot of deja vu in terms of changes in the media industries which favor larger organizations and don't favor smaller organizations. And also in terms of organizing, I'm also seeing a lot of deja vu. Very quickly, we're talking to media about developing their own AI teams, driving innovation. We're talking about organizing conferences and workshops where we, share information about AI and how AI is changing. And then we're talking about innovation funding, giving out checks for grants to do innovation funding. But, has it really worked in the past, and is it going to work again? This is my question. Are we going to, how do we learn from our experiences in the past? Are these really the ways to organize, or are there different ways to do it? And you can see here clearly, for example, in this scan, you can pick up perhaps, a hanging hand and pictures that, are all full of people of a certain color background. So you can see the limitations of AI as well as we are pushing AI forward and telling newsrooms to use AI. So, what am I getting for? For me, I think that perhaps we should look at other metaphors in this changing landscape. And I'm just throwing these out there. I'm sure there are many other metaphors. But for example, if you look at social movements, they are very well organized, very large organizations, but they're not organized around a business model. It's organized around a motivation, a desire for change, an aim, an objective. It's about justice. But they don't create themselves around, how am I going to maximize profit? So I think that, for example, that's an interesting model that perhaps, how do we think about that? Institutional models like banks or universities that are known for credibility, for trust, for knowledge creation. How do they organize themselves? Where is the supply and demand? How do they grow? At what size are they scalable? These are really interesting questions. And are we really looking outside the media industry for solutions? Platforms, we've seen social media transform the internet, with their technology, with their reach, with their diversity, allowing many, many players to participate in building those platforms. I mean, of course, there's a lot of negativity around social media today, but the structure of which platforms are built are really interesting. Should media become more of a platform? Should we have more common technology? Should we have a common basis on which we publish on and use AI? How do we have this kind of collaborations between media organizations? And what would foster those collaborations? So I think these are interesting metaphors, and I challenge you to think outside the box, in terms of structure and scale. How do we achieve those scales? Instead of kind of trying to build each and every one media, can we think differently about the problem? And lastly, I kind of pivot. We're talking about Asia Pacific, and if you look at what has happened globally in the last 5 to 10 years, I see kind of Asia and Asia Pacific really coming to its own. And can we be a more forward Asia? Can media in Asia not just survive but forge its own path and talk about what really works in this diverse part of the world, very populous and very diverse part of the world? Can we lean forward and define the next era of journalism, leading the global discourse? Already we see things like TikTok, right, are emerging from China, becoming a global powerhouse. There are many, many other success stories in Asia. Just because they don't make the headlines, that does not mean they're really, not successful. So I see the diversity of Asia also being our strength. And perhaps the next, model for journalism is not one that is, replicable globally, but many pockets of success. Defining different ways that we use technology and serve our audiences. So I think that is a strong Asia element. I'm very happy that this conference is being held in Jakarta, an extremely exciting and diverse city. So, lastly, we have an AI company ourselves, Avatar. Ash, I understand, is there in Jakarta with you because some interesting technologies called Avatar Chat, where you can design chatbots and Atlas. Do come and design with us. We're very much interested in engaging this journey with you. Thanks so much, and I hope you enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Wow, Premesh does not disappoint. It was really, really an exciting provocation. And I really like what he said at the end, where sometimes there are pockets of innovation in the global south and that it's just not being talked about as much. And so, yeah. Anyway, we're going to talk more about how media organizations in Asia Pacific can change and transform in the face of AI acceleration. And Premesh had given us a lot of interesting questions to discuss. And with us, we will have Kuek Kuang Keng for his second panel to join us. Please, Keng. And also Shuwei Fang from Joan, the Joan Shorenstein Fellow. She's the Joan Shorenstein Fellow. Also, Shita Laksmi, a digital governance consultant. She's also the supervisory board at SafeNet. Okay, so please welcome. Wow, you're so far away. Keng is so far away. Anyway, I want to ask first to Keng and Shuwei about what you think about Pramesh's provocation. What is it from his provocation that resonated most with you? What surprises you? And also, what have maybe changed the way that you think about AI?
Okay, we'll go first. I'm going to make it very short because I've spoken a lot just now. I think what resonates with me is the very interesting idea of that. I think Shuwei is going to touch more is, are we going to produce content for the AI, right? It might, just now I had a very interesting conversation during lunch. What would this AI build a whole industry of, content optimization for AI, right? It is already starting. There are newsrooms that are trying to figure out how can I get my stories to the good book of AI search, right? So that, I can get more traffic from there. But I think it is very different from what we experience in with the social media and SEO optimization. It's because SEO do bring you traffics as well as social media platforms. But AI, even if you get it into the results of the AI, depending what is the prompt, they won't send you any traffic most of the time because people just want convenient information, right? They want everything quick. So most of the time, as the data show, they don't go to your websites, right? So the next step to think about is, even if we are able to optimize our content for AI, we are able to write for AI, and AI feature our content on their results, what is the next step? How do we build something from there? How do we benefit from there, right? And on the other side of it, right, is who controls the algorithm. So we learn our lessons from social media platforms, right? When Facebook said, let's pivot to video, we all pivot. We pivoted. And then Facebook said, okay, we now want short videos, reels. We all do reels, okay? And next, Facebook said, I don't like news content. What do? Right? You lost all your audience, you lost all your traffic, and there's nothing much you can do because Facebook just shut the door. So again, we are now facing, again, like what Prem said, deja vu, right? Again, we have tech companies controlling the search. And even if we get into the good books of these companies, how sustainable can that be, right? So, and we don't have any say over how the algorithms are developed, right? Same as social media platforms. So what are the solutions? So I'm thinking like the first mistake that we might be making is we're trying to game the algorithm, the AI algorithm, to get into the results. But will that, does that mean that we'll repeat our mistakes? That's one. And the second thing is that even if we get into the results, what kind of, what's next? What kind of monetization that we can get from that results, right? And I think like the other thing is that, you know, the lesson from social media platforms is that we did not have any say in how they develop their algorithm. Can we change this time? Are we able to talk with the AI companies, right, to develop something that can we develop the algorithm together? Or are we able to increase our bargain power so that we have a say in how algorithms are developed, right? And that brings me to another question, is that how do I put it? If we don't have a say in how the algorithms are developed, right? Can we establish a direct relationship with our audience, right? And monetize from there? I think the opportunity here is that, you know, if we are able to using AI to make our products better, our content better, to reach our audience, are we at a better position to build a much sustainable relationship directly with our audience? You know, the mistake is that before we leave the customer relationship management, the CMS, to social medias, they help us to reach the audience and they control all the audience data. If we want to avoid repeating that mistakes again, we'll have to engage directly with our audience. And with AI tools, we might be able to do that in a much better and also a cheaper ways of reaching audience. So that gives us another opportunity, right? So yeah, I guess I don't really have solutions for all these problems, but I'm just trying to explore the more possibilities that we might have in the next 3 or 5 years. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Keng. Shuwei, what's your take on Premesh's provocation?
Yeah, so I think, and I'll be very brief because you'll hear from me next. It's really that, you know, we need to stop just thinking about how to use AI and how it's a tool for us, but really that the entire competitive environment has shifted and the entire value chain of media has shifted. We used to have a value chain that was production, distribution, consumption. With AI, as J-Mark has already sort of talked about, it's turned upside down. And here's a controversial thing. I actually am quite excited about this opportunity in this moment in time. And I'll talk about this in the next presentation. But if we think about AI as a primary audience, this really means it's a sort of expansion in the total addressable market for information, and quite possibly the biggest one we've seen for 500 years. So there is that as a real opportunity, I think. And the other thing that makes me sort of cautiously optimistic, and again, this is a controversial position, and of course, this is beset with many, many risks, is that if we think about AI as an audience, AI doesn't consume media and information the same way that humans do, obviously. And of course, you know, there's ways that machines can be manipulated into consuming information in the same way, but AI doesn't have the same emotional hooks that we do. AI doesn't have the same attention economics. Those ways that like media causes outrage and those sorts of headlines, those tactics don't really work for AI. So I kind of think that for this reason, we almost have another chance for democracy, another chance to sort of, a very small window of opportunity to not repeat the same mistakes of the social media era. We've hopefully learned from them and can sort of be more proactive in designing for the better.
Okay, I really like your optimism, Shuwei. Because honestly, when I mentioned this to you when we were preparing for the panel, that when I read your article on Splice, I was reading that in the morning. I was still in bed and just like, you know, scrolling stuff and reading stuff, and then after that I got like anxiety reading that, because we were like, oh, the media organizations now, we have to transform and adapt, be good in being a newsroom that's audience-centered, and now we have to switch or transform to not producing for consumers, but also AI. And so it was like B2C and then B2A to C, and there's possibly B2A to A to A to C and all that. And then, yeah, it made me stop at my tracks. But as you said that you brought a good point where this can transform democratization of knowledge, where people, when they search, if we can really rely on AI, as Keng mentioned as well, there's like hallucination and all that stuff. But if it is truly a tool that a lot of stakeholders can help design, then probably it would be able to be a tool that is for common good. But that question of the design, making sure that we can do that, I guess this conference is exactly why we have that. We're trying to find a way to be able to influence policy, not just in the regional, but also global level. And I'm holding those questions to you, Sita. But my second question, I guess my follow-up question is for Shuwei. With that, Prem mentioned like a good kind of warning about deja vu, where there's like large organizations can adapt and take advantage of this new technology era of AI, have like lucrative license deals. Smaller organizations might not have that power. And honestly, I'm also, like personally, I have doubts about, you know, this new business model where there's like AI companies coming in and say, like, you know, you can sell your content to us and we'll give you money. And then like, is it really gonna be fair for media organization? That's also a question. But so do you have any ideas or thoughts about how media organizations, especially like in the global south, and small media organizations can adapt to this new technology?
I completely understand the anxiety, and of course, if you read stuff like that in the early morning, it's probably not a good setup for the day. So I guess the message that I'll repeat in the next session is, don't just think about using AI, think about how AI is using you. And really in this region, you have a huge strategic advantage in seeing how the early deals between LLMs and publishers in the global north and the west got played out, and learn from that. And I think the publisher deals that have already happened were really suboptimal on the publisher side for a number of reasons. So firstly, the publishers lacked information on how AI was consuming them. Second, they were using outdated metrics for AI consumption. And third, they negotiated deals bilaterally. So in the journalism field, you know, the Washington Post, the New York Times and so on, zero collective action. And think of this compared to the music industry or Hollywood, where these were very famous cases of collective bargaining. So I think if you're a small media in Southeast Asia, there are 3 practical steps you can do probably starting tomorrow. And these are not, you know, super technical, and these are the same questions that I think any media should be asking themselves probably already, but thinking about human audiences. So first, get some information on your audience. and harvest the information on how people use your services, your content, whether it's humans or AI. So for AI, there are companies like Tollbit, which track usage from LLM scraping, and they have a free tier that you can probably download tomorrow. And it's really great that Monash University are doing these collective studies on how the bots are doing it here. And then secondly, look at your direct-to-human relationship, because that part of the value chain, AI can't touch. Get some information on the gaps in understanding from your human audience. If you have a WhatsApp channel, for instance, start by scraping the last 3 months and just counting how many question marks there are in the chat, and then categorizing what kinds of questions people are asking. Are you providing some services that address this understanding gap? The second category, I think it's time to start asking some pretty tough questions about your unique value and core business. So what problems are you solving for your audience, whether it's AI or humans? And are you really in the news business, or is it actually something else? So there are different types of media. The Conversation, KG Media, and Tempo, all quite different business models. So think about the differences there and what you can leverage. And does the way you measure your content actually match up to your core business? I think it's worth reevaluating your pricing model, especially thinking around price differentiation. Malaysiakini was one of the first that pioneered paywalls for their 4 different languages in the early 2000s, 20 years ago. And micropayments in this region have been around for years. So Southeast Asia actually has a huge competitive advantage in innovating in pricing. And then finally, I think this has been mentioned before, is really just think about how to collaborate and create shared infrastructure, whether it's economic or technical. So think ASEAN for information, like an API or something, or how the SWIFT system works for banking. SWIFT is banking infrastructure that allows banks that compete with each other to collaborate. So maybe there's some kind of shared API that can be built around this. And then finally, I think it's worth not repeating the same mistakes that Western media did, and think about sharing knowledge with the other industries that produce intellectual property, so artists, musicians, and so on. As you said this morning, journalism is a really small part of the information ecosystem. So I think overall, the biggest advantage is that you can leapfrog and you can learn from the mistakes of the North so that you don't repeat them.
Okay, thanks, Shuwei. I want to go back to Keng. What do you think about strengths and advantages of media organization in Asia, specifically in terms of being able, Shuwei mentioned that we can learn from the mistakes of what happened in the global North. Do you have any thoughts around, the unique strengths of this region specifically?
Testing. All right. Okay. Yeah, this morning I think we have seen some progress made in Indonesia. Right. There is a study about how much funding. There's a study about what is the impacts of AI to the traffic of newsrooms. There's also study into whether there's a need for a public journalism fund that can come from the government. So I think these are all different solutions that are not driven by the market. So we are kind of trying to find our own ways, right, to solve our problem, right, and also including, of course, the very important reframing of, not really reframing, but just re-emphasize that journalism is a public good and it has to be funded as a public good, right? So these are all the things that don't really work in some of the other countries, for example, in the US, right? And there's one initiative that I want to mention that I'm part of is we call a Journalism Cloud Alliance, right? So it is a collective of investigative newsrooms that we use a lot of cloud facilities and technology, including cloud storage, including data analysis, right? So these are not huge organizations, right? Pulitzer Center is part of it. Who else? OCCRP, GIJN, right? If you look at this organization, you might think they already have big names, but if you look at the number of employees they all have less than 100 employees, okay? about 50, 60, maybe less than that, okay? So there are many newsrooms in this region that are much bigger than them, okay? But what happened is that we have about like 10 to 20 organizations. We came together, we formed this Journalism Cloud Alliance. The objective of this alliance is to find alternative choices of cloud facilities, cloud infrastructures. And what we are trying to do now is we're trying to make ourselves bigger so we have more bargaining power with tech companies, the first step. We want to get better deals in terms of cloud infrastructures from tech companies. And the second step is we are also trying to move away from the traditional tech companies, mainly Google, AWS, okay? Because many of our organizations members, you know, they are not, they don't have great trust with the US under the current administration. So they are looking for alternative place to store their data, to process their data. And we are now looking at vendors in other countries, including in Asia as well, to see we are able to find something, you know, outside of the US, right? So this again is an initiative that, you know, different organizations with the same demands, they come together so that they are bigger in size and they are able to strike a better deal. So I think that is something that maybe the major newsrooms in this region should think about. If you, what happened in the West is that, you know, different major newsrooms are having different individual deals with the AI companies, right? We have seen them. But what about in this region, if we can come together and, you know, do a collective bargain, we might be able to strike different deals and we might be able to bring more benefits, right? And of course, this Journalism Cloud Alliance is not just about, you know, getting better deals, but also we want to build it into a platform that we can share our knowledge. For example, one thing that we are now sharing is that, you know, do you have any individual offers or deals with the tech companies? If yes, can you share with others? So each of us, sometimes we have Hello, okay, it's good. Each of us have like individual deals with different tech companies, right? But sometimes it depends on the people that you know in that companies, right? Once that person leave, then you might have to strike a new deal, right, with another group of people. So we are trying to share all those intelligence within our alliance, so that we are able to, you know, have a better idea of, okay, what is the best way to approach this company to get a better deals, right? So a lot of experience and knowledge sharing in that group as well. And I think that is something that our publishers here might want to think about, yeah.
Thanks, Keng. So that's a really, really important initiative, and I think it covers one part of the problem in terms of like making sure that organizations get fair deals and compensations, and with emerging technology like AI, there's so many different layers of issues that needs to be regulated. The fair compensation is one part, and then the design process and the participatory inclusiveness is another part. I'm going to mengarah, direct my questions ke Mbak Shita around how do we as different stakeholders, journalists, journalism organizations, CSOs, researchers, funders, governments, come together to start creating frameworks to be able to create a better system to have for AI to influence our lives, basically. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's very nice to be here and seeing so many familiar faces. I think that's very difficult questions for me. But I think now AI has been in many conversations, both in international conversations or regional or even local or national ones. So I think AI have become hype. And I think the discussions of AI originally on the risk, for example, so usually a bit going back, so usually we talk about AI in the risk of existential risk, like AI going to outsmart people, AI is very smart, we will be replaced by AI, or the existing risk, job replacement, how our kids are now doing papers with ChatGPT, or exclusion risk, yeah, you know, discriminations and others. I think, but slowly with the discussions, I think the discussions of existential risk, it's becoming more informed and better based on the conversations that we see in the global conversation. I think what we do, Bli Komang mentioned several times this morning about the need to have collectivity, working together, and I think it's very important for the journalism or the media or institutions to also work together with other stakeholders. I think the issues of AI is not only happening in journalism, but also in other space, yeah, in other field as well. Currently, we have this World Summit on Information Society discussions. So World Summit on Information Society, or WSIS, was actually discussed like 20 years ago, and it will have renewed its mandate in this December or November or December during the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly. So there was a discussions among many stakeholders, many communities coming from the technical communities, academicians, civil society, national government or international organizations to talk about, to ensure that WSIS remain its mandate to be prolonged, because if not, because the WSIS can give a platform for multi-stakeholder discussions through Internet Governance Forum. And Internet Governance Forum has been here for more than 20 years, and I think it's quite a good avenue because the AI or Internet is multi-sectors, multi-boundaries, and it's a bit difficult to contain in one sectors. What I would like to suggest to you is actually finding common grounds with many institutions. For example, there are examples of during the AI watermarking, there was an initiative or AI watermarking in AI for Good Summit. It was discussed between the standard organizations like IETF, ITU, and also the, I think, community-based organizations, and also producers of AI that discussed together that AI watermarking, seeing how genuine the AI come from, is being discussed is also important. So I guess finding common grounds with different communities is important. It's good that I heard that in this conversation we also have put technical communities in our discussion, because that's very important. In internet governance or in digital governance, we talk about, so we have infrastructures, protocols, and applications. Most of the discussion coming from applications. The government can only touch currently, I don't know later, at the application layer, but not necessarily in the protocol layers. In infrastructure layers, of course, is the government domain. So I guess the discussion with different stakeholders in different sections is very important, and finding common grounds. And if I heard what Kuek mentioning about a big tech company controlling, I think many of the communities or technical communities also not really happy with the big tech controlling. So I guess finding a right ally could be good. But you have to find a good common ground first before you can get into conversations. Yeah.
Thank you, Mbak Shita. So it's called World Summit for Information
Society. WSIS, yeah.
Okay. I had a question and it disappeared. So I'm going to just open up the time for the floor. If there's questions, we still have 20 minutes. So if anyone wants to ask a question, you can raise your hands and introduce your name. Yes, thank you.
Hello, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Anna, I'm from UNESCO. Thank you so much to AMSI, RG and IFPIM for organizing this conference. I have a long question, so I'll try to formulate it in a short way. Clearly, like there is such asymmetry of power, right, between a handful of US-based AI companies and the rest of the world, and journalists, citizens, everyone, that results in this imbalance that it seems almost impossible to have any kind of bargaining power for one media or a collection of media organizations in order to influence any way that algorithms are made or content is curated. So I was wondering, especially inspired by Shita's response, what we think about the risks and the opportunities for governments in this region to have any influence on digital platform governance that is human rights based and based on systemic risks. I know that obviously there is all kinds of issues with authoritarian tendencies around the world as well as in this region. So it would be important to think about how to mitigate those risks. And I wonder if you have also any thoughts on that. I guess one idea is that focusing, for example, on content and take down requests of content that some governments do is actually not practical, very costly. And so there are also practical and pragmatic arguments for advocating for more systems-based, human rights-based governance that focuses on processes and decision-making within platforms rather than content. And I'm sure there are innovative ways that governments could support public interest journalism without compromising on editorial independence. But finding those ways that are also pragmatic to argue could be possibly beneficial. Because alone, nobody can, even one government alone, especially a low-resourced one, cannot have any say in how AI companies behave. So I was wondering if I could get some thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for the question. Anyone have another question? Or okay, Blikomang? Maybe two questions first.
Thank you, Odit. My question is to Shuwei and Keng, more on the technical side of the information ecosystem that we imagine. I really like how Prem kind of challenged us to think outside of the box using 3 keywords. We need to think like social movement, look at other institutional models, or find a way to federate, to create a federated models. But one of the things that I observed from my 20 years as a media practitioner in Indonesia, we don't see a lot of news media tech, homegrown news media tech in Asia. I think it's very rare. Do you think this is an impediment? This is an obstacle to realize what's Prem challenged us to do? And is there any variables that contribute to that situation? Like we use Google Analytics, we use Cloudflare. There's very, very limited numbers of homegrown news tech. Recently, we see Chinese made produce, like ByteDance, Huawei, but very small numbers from the region.
Okay, thank you, Blikomang, for the question. So the first question from Anna is about how can we identify the risk and opportunities that might be beneficial for governments to advocate for better digital governance regulations, correct? Yeah. So maybe Mbak Shita.
Okay, thank you for the questions, Anna. So Diplo Foundations, as a Geneva-based organizations on the digital governance in 2019 did a research for the National AI Plan. There were 14 countries being, it was 2017 to 2019, there were 14 countries have these AI policies, while the other 20 countries are drafting the white papers and not yet in terms of AI policies. There are two main trends that they are discovered. One is the willingness or the aim for the countries to be the AI leaders. And the second, seeing AI is part of the, seeing AI in the economic incentive. So I think
Mbak Shita, the 17 countries, it's
14
where?
countries.
14 countries?
Back then it was like Japan, France, yeah, mostly global north. So there is race, yeah, like a horse race between countries to be the dominant of AI. We can do a lot with AI and many investments going to that. So that's the background of the geopolitics of AI in the digital governance. I think for what I get from your question is what the government can do or to leverage the government positions in negotiating with the big tech company. I would say privacy. I think data privacy is one of the issues that we can have conversations with the big tech company, because they are somehow, I'm not talking about the media companies here, but big tech companies, social media platforms, they are using a lot of data. And also to make us not only, or Asia or Indonesia in particular, not only as users, but make us more into more citizens, being more, have this human rights perspective in place. I think privacy and data protection framework can be used to leverage the point of conversations. And I think because GDPR in the European Union have shown that, I think the big tech companies getting more fines now for using violently the personal data. And I think it's being discussed and also being implemented pretty much well. I'm not saying it's very effective, but at least it's a good starting point for the government to start have a discussion with the big tech company on algorithm. Yeah.
Thank you, Mbak Shita. So for the next question, it's about the question from Mas Komang about there's not so many homegrown media tech in Asia, and whether that's an impediment, correct? Yeah.
Well, I think we do have media tech homegrown in Southeast Asia, but they are not so big, right? So, for example, when it comes to data journalism, when it comes to designing, interactive storytelling, there are several organizations in this region. One is Punch Up in Thailand, right? TB based in Singapore, but now based in Thailand as well. And also we have Continentalists in Singapore, right? These are like small homegrown media tech that do very good storytelling, digital storytelling, right? So I think we do have this kind of small, as Prem mentioned, small pocket of successes. But yes, we do not have like, huge regional or international media tech companies. Yep. And I think one of the reason I keep thinking about the last 5 minutes is like, why? One thing that I observe is that, it is very hard for us to retain our talents, right? We face these huge issues of brain drain, right? For the past 15 years, all the best, it's kind of sad to me personally, all the best data journalists that I train, they all join international news organizations, or they move outside of Asia, right? And so every time when people ask like, where are the data journalists? They are all at Reuters, SCMP, and then further they'll go to New York Times. Yeah. So I do think that we do need a lot of investment in this media tech environment. And one factor is, of course, that our media companies don't see tech as a very important asset in the past few decades. I think we realized it kind of too late to realize that media, we need technology to push, our media business. If you look at what the other media companies in the West they have done, right, they realize it much earlier than us, so they're able to build big tech team, right? But I think Malaysiakini was trying to do that in the past, but then they realized that that would not work, so they actually pivoted. They have outsourced their tech to other companies. Maybe that's a solution as well. Like if we, several media publishers, we outsource to one company, maybe we're able to build something bigger, right? So instead of building our own in-house tech team, are we able to pull together our resources to build something that is, that's regional, right? That might be one solution. But if you look at the unicorns, right, there are other examples. For example, Gojek is huge, right? Grab is huge, right? So these are all technology companies originated in Asia, right? But how do we learn from them and replicate it in the media tech business? That's something that I don't have an answer.
So I think, is it an impediment that there are not many homegrown media tech initiatives? There might be ways to innovate on the product layer. That doesn't necessarily mean completely inventing homegrown tech. And there might be business models on this product layer that are still economically defensible, but that remains to be seen what that might be. But I'll just illustrate with one example from the banking world. So M-Pesa, which is mobile banking as invented in Kenya, didn't reinvent banks. It built an API layer essentially on top of banking infrastructure that enabled mobile banking. So maybe there is some equivalent for Southeast Asia that uses existing models from elsewhere. But of course, the same sort of dependency and other issues exist. So I don't have a particularly good answer for this, but I'm saying maybe there's a very small slice that could be innovated on top of.
Okay, thank you. I think we still have time for one more question. Sergio? Sorry, we'll hear from him first, and then we'll come to you. Yeah.
I'm happy to give my,
Yeah,
all right. Just a quick question about, like our reliance on big tech. It seems to me in a lot of those conversations, and we'll be having those conversations for many, many years, that we're kind of going after the media companies to negotiate and talk more. And Keng said that they're trying to create an alliance to have more bargaining power and stuff. But those companies, they have all the powers, as Shuwei mentioned herself. Journalism is just a small part of information ecosystem, right? Is there a way that we can just do our own thing? And of course, we need to negotiate with them, with talk a lot of the big tech organizations, but in the end, we don't matter that much to them, I guess. We got Facebook pulling out of Canada with minimal repercussions for them at all, right? So we got Google, and there was that Anya Schifrin study that said that journalists brought $14 billion to Google, which is peanuts for Google, right? So, I mean, they have no desire to engage with us anymore, especially in the past few years with all the political stuff happening. And at the same time, we have a lot of interest in talking to them and using their tools. A lot of newsrooms built whole SEO teams that are now having, those people are being fired because, we have all these AI search engines and stuff. So we need to use their parameters, their tools, their things.
I think we got your question. Thank you.
Yeah.
So can we just do our own thing and instead of building alliances and like negotiating with those big tech companies who have too much power? Okay, well, we hold that question, and then.
So my name is Irma, and I'm a researcher. Since I'm going to this discussion today, my friend teased me with, there's an article on Springer that talk about AI ethics and its uselessness. But before, with so much respect to everybody here and the speakers also, I'm going to read a little bit of it because I think the discussion also needs to talk about AI ethics a bit, since the bargain from the news media as well, that we have come to the publishers' rights, but also the flood of AI guidelines and ethics. There has been so much discussion about it. However, they are meaningless principles which are contested and incoherent, making them difficult to apply. They are isolated principles situated in an industry and education system which largely ignores ethics. And they are toothless principles which lack consequences and adhere to corporate agendas. I want to know how the speakers thinks about it, and also relates it to the publishers, right? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Last questions, and then we'll come to the speakers, and then we'll close. Okay.
Hi, thank you for all your inputs. My question is actually related to small newsrooms, hyperlocal newsrooms, and I'd like to hear more from you if there is time. What your recommendations are for smaller newsrooms. I think we all know that there is a race for the development of AI tools. There's homogeneous data sets being used to train AI models. We know that very often indigenous knowledge, local and underserved languages are either not used or not used in ethical ways. And we heard about how AI can handle content at scale, but how do we ensure that local context, nuances, languages are also integrated into these processes when we talk about these models and tools. And we are all aware that if that does not happen, then we may end up producing new power structures. So in terms of small newsrooms that are really struggling to use AI, and even at lunchtime when I was talking to some people outside who come from small newsrooms, they were talking about we are trying to develop our own policies for the use of AI in the newsroom. So what would be, like, if you were to suggest one thing that a small newsroom can do today, what would that be? I'm also trying to think of these things.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can start with that question first. What would be the one suggestion that you would give to small newsrooms who want to transform in this AI era? And then we can go to the next round of questions. Maybe Keng?
Can I pick the questions? I'll leave the difficult one to my fellow panelists. I'm very interested with Sergio's question is because we are exactly trying to address that problem at the Journalism Cloud Alliance, is that besides from looking into deals, like better deals with existing companies, our next step is actually we are exploring the possibilities of having a community cloud infrastructure, which means that we build our own service and then we share the cost among us. The challenges, right? The challenges is that first, we won't be able to make it cheaper than what the tech companies are having now because we don't have the scale, right? So, but the other thing is that because of course when you're choosing cloud infrastructures, you are not just looking at the price, you're also looking at security, right? And with what is happening in US now, many of our member organizations don't think that it's safe to have their data stored in US. So that created incentives for us to move to probably much expensive infrastructure, but it's more secure, right? So there is an opportunity here because of what is happening in the US and Europe, right? Like the whole trend of getting more conservative and right-turning, is that there's an opportunity for tech companies outside of those areas to develop something that can compete and that can guarantee more security. And I think a lot of organizations are willing to shift outside of US and Europe, right? But we are still exploring and to see what the economics will be, right? But that is one possibility. And we know that there are other communities that are doing that. Some NGOs, they have their own, share servers because they have very highly sensitive content and data they want to share. They want to get it away from all different governments, right? So that's one option as well. But again, we have not worked out the mathematics and the economics. We don't know how much would it cost, right? But that's like one of the next steps. So I think that is something that we can think out of the box, right? And the other thing is that in the intermediate, we might, if you want to shift from these tech giants, We might go for the secondary, more social enterprisey kind of vendors. For example, the Flockynet, right? Which is probably a good alternative for many newsrooms doing investigations. So there are other vendors that we're trying to identify as well. So yes, we are trying to, to explore other options. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Keng. So you answered Sergio's question. That's great. Maybe Shuwei, you can answer the question around what can small media newsrooms do to adapt?
I think if you're a small newsroom, then scale is not a business model that will save you, but differentiation probably is. So I think it starts really with some very ruthless product questioning about what your core unique value is. So you ask yourself, what is the problem that only I can solve for my audience, whether it's AI or for humans? And then the second thing you can do is get some visibility on that, get some actual data on how AI is using you and how your human audience is using you, and then see if those two things match. And I think that, I think really in this era, it's not just about using the tools. Of course, that is true, but that doesn't create an economic moat. Everyone is going to be using the tools, so everyone's going to cost cut and save. You need to think about strategically who your competitors are and how you can sort of essentially provide unique value.
Okay, thank you. And for Masita, it's the last question about AI ethics, which is kind of, some people think it's pointless, paper tiger. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. I think I agree with you that AI ethics is everywhere and principles are everywhere and difficult to implement. So that's a reality. Maybe because the regulators also still figuring out what AI is like we are. So it's a black box. We don't know what's happening behind those closed doors. So in my point of view, I guess the approach of risk-based approach, risk-based regulation might be quite effective. For example, last year we have a lot of elections and many countries are developing a lot of AI regulation for the elections. So I think that's also one of the good things that we can do. The second one is, again, data protections. I guess at least we don't let AI to crawl the data or our personal data. You can crawl other data, but not our personal data. I guess those are the two dimensions that I think could be more effective in regulating AI currently, in my point of view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please give a big round of applause to our speakers. And thank you for listening. And there's so much information, ideas, questions that probably has not been answered and will be here, so we can continue the discussions afterwards. So we'll give the floor back to Trina.